more
all.
seconds. It's preparing the street.
Yeah, they better be.
I was gonna say, this is the weather, this is the.
He'll be ready, a few more years, he'll be ready to join our clan, but I said to him, I said, you didn't.
Oh, he probably can handle it.
Oh, he could, actually.
You're live.
All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the reading and the approval of the minutes for our May 20th, 2021 meeting. I need a motion to approve those minutes.
Make a motion to approve those minutes.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
On to the finance report.
I'll make a motion to accept the finance report, the May finance report as presented.
Second.
Need a second. All those in favor?
Aye. And I'll make a motion on the checks and the cash flow detail as presented.
Thank you. I need a second on that.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The annual project review is what was emailed for your review.
I did read it. I did suggest just some minor modifications, so I'll make a motion to accept the annual project review.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
On the, so on the solar policy, I sent everybody a markup, just some simple edits to it to make it consistent with the changes that we recently made in our fee schedule, so.
We need a motion to adopt that.
A motion to adopt a amended solar
All right,
policy.
so I need a motion to adopt the amended solar
I'll
policy.
make a motion to adopt the amended solar policy.
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
You got another training here?
Yeah, April?
So I had signed up for a couple things. The NYSERDA webinar, it's on taxation and assessments for battery energy storage. I can pass this around if anyone wants to look at it. It's just like a little blurb about that. And then I also signed up for a basic economic development course through New York State EDC. And this is the agenda if anybody wants to look at that.
Those are all online courses?
No, the New York State EDC is up in Albany for
Okay.
next week.
It's actually in person?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a class and then I get to graduate.
All right.
I did one of the first NYSERDA classes that they had on that, which reminded me what I forgot about science. However, I will say it's very interesting, and given what's going on here in this region in energy policy, I thought some of those looked very interesting, at least to understand everything that's kind of going in and going behind them.
I'll report back what I learned.
Yeah.
Just move right on into the project stuff then. Broad Street Bagel, or Broad Street Bagel LLC, nothing new. We did execute an option with them. Those who don't know, Paul Cagliano, it's actually his wife Megan owns that company, but Paul also owns the Paul's Pizza Plaza and the Dollar General store that's there. He's been asked to put an addition on the Dollar General store for them. So he's trying right now to see if he can roll both of these into, one project, one contractor, build the new place and do the expansion. So seems to be serious. He's got a good product. I know of several people that are, have small coffee shops they've opened up that are that are using his product. So let's sit tight and see. Hopefully we can get this one pulled off. That would be in New Baltimore, right in front of Empire Merchants on that small parcel there. So I guess the biggest thing going down the list is on X21 East. We've hit a snag with the Thruway acquisition. We got a call last week from the government affairs guy. At the same time, Paul got a call from the attorney that after 3.5 years of beating my head against the wall, they have now determined that they cannot make a direct sale to us, negotiated sale, because we are not a political subdivision. And it's interpretation of their part of the Public Authorities Law. Me and Paul batted around, and long story short, we decided, look, let's just go to a plan B, which would be having the county take over the application. We pay them, they buy it, they flip it back to us. I just really, anyway.
It's just a long way around the pool, that's all.
It's one way on the pool, not only that, but when we started this, I researched this, and I researched public authority, and I specifically brought this up at the first meetings that we could. And then over multiple times over the years, we were good on this, and it's just frustrating when you're working with professionals and 3.5 years later. Anyway, so Paul and I are trying to work through it right now. The county is queued up. Sean got back and we said whatever we need to do. Paul and I now are just trying to preserve the process as much as we can and not get started back. My concern is that we have already paid for 2 appraisals, and those appraisals under the comptroller's rules are only good for a year. And Paul noted the other day we got some time, but one of the appraisals is pushing pushing 6 months, if not over already. So, and then the other one's good. It's probably only a month and a half behind that one. So, I know we want to move quickly, but my experience after 3.5 years of how far I've gotten, I'm not going to be a happy camper if those appraisals expire.
I think we should put a letter to them to the effect that you need to move quickly here, and just put them on notice about the appraisals and get a resolution, in favor of the county or, or other political subdivision. Let's move on.
Let's see where we get back from Joe in the next day or so. He's supposed to look and see, and I'm going to remain confident that they realize they got some egg on their face and they're going to find a way.
They clearly do.
They do. And just find a way to get this thing assigned to the county so we can pick up right where we are and get this thing moving forward. Because they've done the appraisal review. Both appraisals were done. They've done the appraisal review. They have not given us a price yet. Obviously, they will not share the appraisals. They will tell you. He said they can tell me the comps that they used.
What about the adjustments, dummy?
Anyway, so anyway, that's where we sort of stand with. That's where we stand with the Thruway. I'd like to tell you we have a time frame, but as I don't know. Also,
Did we give them the proper, have we transacted on the property that they were going, the property line boundary, didn't they need a certain amount of property?
they backed off of that.
They backed off of that, okay, thank you.
But that was the other thing after.
Right,
how
I was
many
gonna
years,
say,
and then I had to go
yep.
pay, don't forget I had to pay to have all the surveys, we paid to have all the surveys readjusted because they made that decision change. When you have nobody to account to, I guess that's the way it works. So the other thing with the 2 exits is we're still playing a little shell game with Columbia Memorial. Right now, Columbia does not have an option on any parcel. I just got a text from Jake Cahalan, the CEO president. I knew we had a board meeting this morning. They are still interested in the west side. I reassured him that every client, anybody else I showed the property to, I've told them that, CMH is in line first. So we're just trying to get our ducks in a row so we get an exact option on which. We talked about moving them to the east side, or the Quality Inside, just because, one, the construction costs are a lot less, second, topography, rock, all the way around, plus the natural gas line expense to get across the bridge. We've talked about that. We met with the county. The county would prefer to reserve the Quality Inlet site for, holding out that in the future we can get a hospitality or some of the intended uses we had, which I asked Sean to make sure he communicated that back to the legislature, because I'm not always sure executive staff and legislature are on the same page with these things, and I want to make sure, the IDA is not being perceived as sitting on our heels with this property. Now, I'm waiting word back at this point. What Sean put on the table was that under the incentive, under the pandemic money that just came out to the communities, Greene County got about $9 million. A large portion of those funds were dedicated to infrastructure uses, and so they're trying to get clarification right now as to whether they can contribute towards the natural gas line with us as part of that funding. So I'm waiting on word on that. And basically, it might take a little bit because Delgado and everybody are being slammed by every community asking the same questions, and they all have to go back to the Treasury, I guess, for clarification.
Right, the rules have come out, and what you can and can't do.
What
It's
is
not 1
infrastructure?
year, it's, right. What is it, what expenses count, what expenses don't count, like you can't pay bond debt back. There's a whole set of, there's a whole triage of money.
Good luck.
But it's
Typical
another-
government operation.
On exit 20, unless there's any questions on the east side, that's kind of where we're at. Stewart's obviously still interested. He bothers me every couple of days. I can't do anything any faster. And then that's about it on that. And the other thing I told the Thruway is, you're kind of really screwing us up with our own property, because don't forget the Thruway surrounds us on all 4 sides.
Right.
And until we take care of it, unless, it's kind of hard to go market that property when there's a 30-foot strip between the road and the building, and you got to get a permit to access it. So, not that we would have moved on the hotel and worked something out and figured out a way to get around that, but the reality is it's making it difficult for us to market the property when even with the hotel, you know, the deal was, here's the property I could sell you now, but you gotta take this piece later when we get possession of it. You know, it's kind of your parcel. So that's it, unless anybody has any questions on that. On the exit 21 Travel Plaza, I did notify the consultant that he should advise his clients that the property is not available for that use. And we're fine and dandy with it.
Yeah.
And then we are trying to work with Paul to see if we can make some contacts with another property owner that they were interested in and see if we can help them on that.
Yeah, I wrote to the guy, the family sold it 10 years ago.
Oh, they did?
So I don't have any contact with the
Oh, okay.
current owner. I conveyed that, you know,
So the current owner is not with
the Shaw family, I think they were from Selkirk, Ravenna. And the father died a while ago. The mom is still alive. The son is a lawyer with a big New York City law firm. Actually, a very nice young man. And I sent him a note and he said, we sold it 10 years ago. So
so this new bunch is totally different.
a new bunch of people, as we say. I got to remember.
We talked about that last time, but anyway, we just tried to do what we could do to maybe, so at this point, I will tell you that, in talking with the consultant, they said, you're just not gonna believe it, there is just not a parcel available, you know, for something like this between Tappan Zee and Albany, you know,
Yeah, he said that, and that was amazing to me. But again, it's the same thing. You know, people don't want idling trucks in their neighborhood, and yeah. I mean, maybe what they got to do, maybe it's a big lift, but you know, get a entrance off of the thruway from one of the rest areas. You know, that land that was it Schnebley had and all that stuff that was back behind the Coxsackie rest area, and maybe just expand off the back of that. You know, and that's, you know, like sometimes they have like a right in, right out off the back. You know, because that's the you know, it's just expanding the mess that's already there.
Or make a big enough offer for that bunch we were talking about.
Yeah.
And because that's what it really needs. That would be the ideal scenario.
that would be a great
For everybody.
I figured that maybe the Thruway would get smart now that they're all totally cashless and would start to look at a plan as to how to add new exits.
Sure.
Has he made a bid on that property, or is it just, you know?
I think they've just made inquiries on it.
Because it's in such bad shape. And they have a little sign on their fuel pumps. They're trying to rent out the restaurant to somebody, you know, because the restaurant is empty, or there's a restaurant for rent. Just to sell it.
So maybe I'll call the guy back today and I'll say, look, you gotta get smart here and make a bid here. Now, do you want us to make a bid for you? And you know, and you know, you know, look, you know, the speech starts with, you know what today is? Today is your lucky day.
That place is a wreck. I mean, it's a total
You're talking
wreck.
about where exactly?
It's a bulldozer.
On the other side of the Holiday Inn.
The truck stop that's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a mess. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, you can't even hardly drive in a parking lot with the holes are so bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not putting a nickel into the place, so maybe they'd be happier with just taking the money and leaving. I don't know.
They should.
I think so.
Our site's off the table anyway, so we're going on from there. And then I want to start reaching out to Ken Kearney, who we worked with before, about potential, you know, workforce housing project. Part of that site's really ideal for it. Let's see what's going on with the pandemic, see if I can get some interest in that. Next item on the list is the Champlain Hudson Power Express. So prior, you know, in between board meetings, I believe, I had sent everybody out in a Senate package. As you know, they had come in and they've asked for the full suite of benefits, you know, sales, mortgage, and pilot. They had made an offer, you know, presented some money on the table up front, and looking at it, the offer went out at a 10% bump on that, and then we were to mitigate the, you know, the impact, I should say, the lack of positive impact from this project, that there'll be no employment, there'll be no future direct, indirect, or induced economic activity. We're still tracking like what the warehouses and stuff spend, right, when they give us the numbers. I mean, you know, these businesses are spending a couple hundred to 200,000+ more a year in the community on local goods and services. They're going to generate significant money. And some of these places have been in long enough now that we're seeing people I know going in and replacing carpets, etc. But this project brings none of that. So to help offset some of that, this is why we, you know, came up with the idea of doing a community fund, which is not inconsistent with Athens, when Athens was done, given the impact, etc. The other terms were to do the sales and mortgage tax, the sales use tax and the mortgage tax, both at 100%, but require a 25% pilot back, which we have done on similar projects. And we've done, in fact, we've done on almost every project now lately, is we've required some kind of pilot back. I think I told you earlier, they had called me and had asked me, I had been treating the upland and the submerged line the same, because it's 25 miles from the county, 1 mile is underwater, all the rest of it's upland. Didn't want to have a complicated pilot, so I said, we're just treating it all the same. They requested that we treat it separately, which is legitimate. You know, the construction cost on the inline is probably 25% of what the construction costs are on one. You know, they just go down with a big hydro sled, drag it through the mud and bury it, whole lot. So in reality, it's worth a lot less money. So we did make that adjustment, and in turn, they had made the offer. They knew I was concerned about future changes in New York State real property tax law that might result in them canceling, or terminating a pilot with us. And they said that they'd agree to make this pilot non-terminable. Paul and I discussed it. Paul said we can do that. So they called me last week, and I'll say they counter-offered. They're on the pilot. Their position is that they don't want to pay. They don't want to pay more than what they offered. And then on the sales and use tax and the mortgage tax pilots, what they requested was to substitute a $1 million payment up front and a $1 million payment at close of business when they start of operation. At the 25%, I figured we were potentially could make 2.5 or something like that, maybe between 2 and, let's say between 2 and 2 3/4 million. So I think the numbers aren't that far off if we substitute. So my recommendation at this point is to counter with a 5% increase in the total pilot amounts, maintain the 70-30 split, and then agree to take do the two mortgage and sales, but take the funds, lump sum funds, the $2 million up front. That $2 million would go into our parks account and would be used for us to continue doing shovel-ready land work or our work. Our fee for the IDA, is about $1.8 million on that one. So I don't think we need to bleed it's the wrong term, but I don't think we need to necessarily hit the project up for more on the IDA end of it. And I don't want to open us up for too much criticism either, on that. And as I noted in my thing, I want to put the offer out as this is final, and non-negotiable. I will say this, but I'm sorry, I'm interrupt you here, but I will say this, they've been very reasonable to work with. Their initial offer in the door was more reasonable than most, okay? A lot of people come in the door don't want to pay nothing.
Yeah.
So,
well, I get they're dealing with multiple municipalities, so they're careful of the precedent they're sending. Right?
They are, and they're looking for some kind of continuity, between all things. But the problem is that several of the other IDAs have literally just said, okay, here, we'll give you what you want, and that's it. No discussion, no nothing. And I just find that not really to be, at least in my opinion, how you would run an IDA. You would do a negotiation.
Well, clearly, because they counter offered. I mean, they know it's a negotiation, right? So you're meeting them in the middle. The old classic meet them in the middle, right? And I think just to Maggie's point, the question she had raised is that really our final offer? Well, I guess we'll see, but at the end of the day, Renee can use the board as the bad guy of like, my board said this, so it's like a car salesman.
So
well, that was really my question is, do we say that, or is that in our
Well,
bag?
he can say
right.
that.
No. So I'm gonna put it right.
Right, well, that's what
you feel to realize here is that in this negotiating position, we hold the position.
Sure.
Right.
So, so it's only up to you guys, because you guys stand strong behind. I have no problem, I would have stood at 10% personally, but I don't have no problem with a solid negotiation. I do have to say, the numbers are filled up. Now, just to give you an idea of scale, this is, after Athens Generating, this is hands down the largest exemption we've ever given. Now, Athens Generating is sort of an anomaly, because we know that the savings we've given them are phantom savings, really, because of the assessment issue on that. But they would have, look, this is calculations as best you can do in 9 different taxing jurisdictions looking out 30 years. Without a pilot, our projections are they would have paid 170, let's round it to 176 million. With the pilot, it's about 134 million. So they're gonna save 41 million on the pilot. They'll save, based on their projections, 14.5 million on the sales and use tax end of things. So that brings us up to like 56 million, you'd say, right there in their savings, plus the mortgage tax on top. And I would also say that these numbers are low, because what I want to do is, we did the payment schedule, started out like in 2021 and looked at 30 years. We're just going to convert those numbers to year 1, year 2, year 3. So if they don't start for 3 years, I'm not going to accelerate the numbers forward for 3 years. We're going to determine the schedule. I'm suggesting the schedule now goes into the thing, that's the schedule later. So they're going to benefit from 3 to 4 years of not having to pick up that tax growth on the starting point on that. And so just overall, the pilot, overall over 30 years, the pilot gives them an effective discount rate of like 23%. That's what they're saving on the pilot alone. And then I would also note that this is hands down the longest pilot we've ever done in 30 years. We've never gone over
20. 20 is a long.
20, right? We don't have any 20. I thought we had 25 for some reason. We don't. Okay.
We might have had a longer one with Steve Hall.
But it is hard to compare because this is a utility buried in the ground versus a building in different scenarios
I mean,
going on that just
it's found money.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's found money.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
Zero impact on
Yeah.
anybody or anything.
And so, the finding statement you'll get before the next board meeting, I'm pounding away on it right now. But one of the things that I took a lot of time on this because I wanted the public to understand, what do existing utility type right-of-ways pay in this county right now? And I gotta tell you, they rank, the highest number you see is like in Catskill with a Central Hudson project at about, and I did this all on a mileage basis so that we can rank apples to apples. There's in the village of Catskill, it was like a $12 million tax bill on a one mile down there, because that's the village tax rate, so damn high in Catskill. Power companies are anywhere from like 1,600 to 2,800, like so nobody's really paying a year. So we looked at Central Hudson National Grid with power lines. We looked at Iroquois Pipeline, which is literally 1 mile less in length than this pipeline, but natural gas, power, it's a ditch in the ground, but it does energy. Close enough to compare. And then we looked at what the railroad currently pays. So you take like Exaki at the school district, the railroad currently pays $86,000 a year to the school district. I think the pilot the first year for the school district is over $600,000. The highest, like I said, on average, let's say, without me doing the numbers, I'm going to stick my neck out and say on average it's about $5,000 a mile, let's say, that's being generated off these projects. Hudson Champlain's coming in at over 80. So
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I have not met with the school district yet. I have met with every town supervisor and village mayor, the 7 of them, 6 of them. Everybody's obviously very happy. On the host community fee part, what we'll do, and I haven't written that stuff up, but we will write guidelines up for it. I don't see the IDA having any project approvals or anything like that. It'll be community money. And the number one, the strongest recommendation is going to be that they put it, into projects that will help further economic development in the community. Some of the communities, I suggest that we target specifically when these funds come in. Like for one, I already talked with Jeff Russo. Mm-hmm. The Baltimore has got opportunity up there along the thruway entrance area. If they can just get water and gas line a few more miles. And, so there might be, so when it goes out, there'll be conversation with the board. The towns will be, if these are solid economic development projects, maybe the IDA will match up with you. So what I'm trying to get us is from being the infrastructure kings to partially paying for infrastructure and putting some money in their hands. If they don't have a solid infrastructure, then do something else for the community that you couldn't normally do because of, you just can't afford to put it. You can't afford to put it in the tax base or put it on a tax roll, and you don't have the benevolency of the state picking up 85% of every capital project you do, when you're a municipality on that.
So after 30 years, would it go on the tax roll?
Correct, just like everything else.
100%.
How tight is it along the railroad? Like how much room do they?
They're right in along the tracks, so basically,
Yeah.
yeah, cause they gotta stay within the right of way.
That's what I was gonna say, because I've already heard like Ellie in Baltimore, cause she lives along there's already making news about it, you
Yeah, I
know.
saw her comments.
But it's no private property, everything's.
What's their
right away.
concern when they're building, or?
It just, it's more, they're gonna tear trees down and, but.
No, I don't think they're gonna do
Not
any of that.
right away,
No, it's not
they've
gonna
already
be there.
maintained that.
It's all within that.
Yeah, I still think people understand it well.
Right, and you're literally just laying a cable.
And how
once they're-
minor it's gonna be, it doesn't take
The
much.
work will probably be no more than when they were working down there on the tracks and the bridge and everything else down there.
If that.
It would be less, actually, right?
Yeah,
it's
it's
already,
already go through pretty quick.
it's already
Now,
now.
I have
Pretty
not,
steep now in some spots, so you're gonna have to do something about that.
Yeah, I don't know how they handle that, or the crossings, I don't know what they do there, but.
we all have to keep in mind, this is not necessarily a done deal project. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
they are in the loop, they went in for the NYSERDA Tier 4 recs, but there were 9 projects, I think, got submitted. And every day I'm hearing there's more. There's one by, they'll come to me in a minute, but they're out west, they wanna put a converter station in Marcy and then run all the way to the city down the thruway. So clearly they gotta run through Greene County, they'd have to come talk to us. And then we know Rise Power and Light is looking at a project to go down the river. And then the press I saw yesterday, it was one of the articles, I think Maggie sent me, that said something about there were besides Hunter Champlain, there were 2 other proposals for the river. So we know one of them, I don't know who the other one is. And I can tell you, the survey boats have been working off Coxsackie here, crazy. So somebody's doing a ton of bathymetric surveying in the river right now on that. So,
So right now, where are we at? Do you need an approval for
I,
that, or just,
yeah, I would say the board to make motion, this is to make this a centerable offer, and it's our final offer.
is everybody solid with that?
I'm good with that.
Maggie?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I just need a motion to move forward with Renee's offer.
I'll make a motion to move forward with Renee's offer.
Okay,
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Ferguson mitigation, I just threw it in because here's the situation we've been dealing with. If you remember when we did Ferguson, that archaeology had been done by 2 different archaeologists over 2 period of times. There had been archaeology done earlier for Fernley, when they were gonna do the big greenhouses back there years ago. And then there was areas that we did archaeology on. Well, it wasn't until really like the 12th, right at 1 minute to midnight, when we realized that there was a very small piece that had gotten missed in the surveys. So I was able to convince, if you remember back at the time, I was able to convince the Triangle Shippo and everybody to let us move forward with the phase 1 of the project. Let us do the analysis that we needed to do,
Sorry, the computer just rebooted, so you're probably not being recorded for this part. If you want to wait a second,
no, we're just gonna keep moving.
okay, I'll make a
Boss
note
doesn't
of
need
it.
it. So, anyway, so they let us move forward with the understanding that we would do a phase 2, and then we would come back and amend the MOU later, to mitigate. So we had about $85,000 to do a phase 3 collection where we take all the artifacts out. We don't need to, Ferguson doesn't need to disturb that property. They just need to get rid of soil spoils. So just like that other big dirt pile that's out there, that's got archaeology under it also. I convinced the tribe, let us put delimited barrier down, basically snow fence, plastic snow fence, and then pile of dirt. Not that anybody's ever gonna dig through that 90,000 yards of dirt and get to the bottom again, but if you
Right.
did, you would come to that barrier and it would tell you, be alert or
How
shit.
many years ago?
Right.
Who's the idiot to put this?
About 1,000 years from now, they're like, oh, ancient idiots again.
Look what we found.
I know. So, we contacted the Corps, trying to get this done, get the MOU. I've got everybody, the tribe, ship, everybody's lined up. We've already agreed that we would, instead of doing the 85,000 to collect, we'd do 50,000 for an alternative mitigation, which is gonna be the wigwam and everything out of the. So the tribe decided to just put the brakes on it, because until we get the MOU, does anyone take the money? And I'm with them on that. But anyway, long story short, the permit is now expired, which is no big deal, because we did everything we needed to do under the term of the permit. And so the Army Corps can't figure out what to do. So I floated to the state, can we handle it like we handled Catskill? Where we had no, so normally what triggers these section 106 reviews is you go in for a permit of some sort, and it's tied to a permit action. Well, like in the case of Catskill, we didn't have any specific Army Corps DEC permit applications ready to go, but at some point in the future, we need to set up an erosion control permit, general permit. So we were able, the state agreed that we would do the SHPO cover, we would do a SHPO review basically through the state, and the state would give us the all clear on the proceed. So I floated that out to the group to see whether we can go that mechanism and just kind of cut the core out of it, because Ferguson will need further stormwater control permits in the future. So just give you an idea of the, yep. So I'm glad it's really easy to do economic development in New York State.
I know, right.
We should be over at the elementary.
You know what to do in
school.
China?
Yeah.
Build
Just do it.
it. I'm not saying that's okay too, but you see the polar opposite.
We built the hospitals, like in a week.
Yeah.